What's up, Brave Hearts community? This is Sean Heineman here with another segment of It's Scary to Remarry, wanting you to love fearlessly. Today, we have a special guest with us. And I know I get excited about a lot of episodes, but this one is so special and dear to me because she's been YouTubing for a long time. She's been rocking with me since the first brand, right? And some of y'all know that I rebranded. So this one is really special to me. Today's guest is a woman of faith. She's a mom, she's a pastor's wife, and she's also a YouTuber. You can find her channel at So Blessed One, and she'll give more of her information at the end of this segment. And she is in the blessed place when you go to her channel. So you're always going to be in the blessed place. So I love being in the blessed place because she drops so many gems that I love. Where she discusses faith, family, fashion, marriage, relationships, and food. Bravehearts community, let's show some love to Deidre Hillary. How are you doing today?
Hi, wonderful. And I just want to start out by saying, don't let my husband hear you call me by my maiden name, Deidre Hillary. Oh. That's okay. But it's Deidre Hillary Askew. But I will say it's Askew. But I will say I had to be married 13 years before I became Askew. It only took 13 years for me to change my name. Now we're going on almost 17 years.
Oh, wow. Well, congratulations to that. I've been rocking with you for so long. It's definitely an honor to get back on with you and to be rebranded and for us to still be connected and for you to still do what you do after all these years. So I love that.
14 years.
14 years.
On YouTube.
On YouTube, right? You did a video called Stop Preparing Them to Wife Someone Else. I came across this and I was stuck because I watched the whole video, watched it twice because there were so many gems. So that's when I said I needed to collaborate with you so we can do this.
Awesome.
And it says, are you preparing him to marry someone else? So this is kind of like a part two-ish kind of thing.
Okay.
Deidre, let's jump into this. Do you think men desire marriage while in a relationship, although they are already getting the marriage benefits?
Good question. I believe, yes, men desire marriage. Mm-hmm. However, when we give the man a marriage environment or a marriage relationship, or we're already the marriage benefits, as you put it, then it lessens their desire to be married. You know, we hear all those old adages of, why buy the when you can get the, so I don't want to offend anyone with those words, but the meaning behind it is true, that when we offer the marriage benefits without the benefit of being married, then it lessens the man's desire to really want, or motivation or inspiration to be married. So that's the answer. But in general, I believe, yes, men want to be married. And I think a lot of times as women, we think that men don't want to be married because we're finding it hard to find those men that want to be married. Right. We find it hard to believe that they want to be married, but I personally believe that men want to be married. And I know the experiences that I've had, that I know many guys who tell me, a lot of people call me first lady. First lady, I want to be married.
Yeah.
First lady, I want to be married. And sometimes I'm surprised. I've been surprised because I too thought a lot like, most women. These men just want to play around. They don't want to be married. But the more I talk to guys and realize, wow, they do want to be married, but they are looking for a certain kind of woman, certain kind of motivation to be married, etc. And I know we'll talk about that further. But to answer that question, yes, they want to be married, but we lessen their desire, motivation for marriage when we give them the marriage benefits before we get the benefit of being married.
Yeah, I love that. And that's true because, I went through a divorce and I remarried because I knew that I still wanted to do this after bump
Right.
in my head. I had to learn after 15 years and then going through a divorce. But I still desire to be married. I didn't want to play the field. And I tell people that, I tell singles that all the time. Like, I didn't go and have a whole phase or whatever. I didn't want to
Right.
go and do all that. I was just like, I want to raise my daughter, and eventually I want to do this again. So I'm glad that you're debunking this myth, like men don't
Right.
want to do it. Because do you think women use that as a cop out sometimes? Are you tired of dating the same person, just different faces? Are you tired of people wasting your time in this whole dating process? Do you desire to marry one day? I created this 5-part video series entitled Dating Intentionally 5 Ways to Know They Are the One for You. You can get it now in the comment section below. You will see it is 5, the number 5, ways to know.podia.com. I created this 5-part video series with you in mind. Now let's get back into today's podcast episode.
I think we use it as to kind of soften the blow of as an excuse, that men don't want to be married. And to me, it softens the blow to our ego, because the reality is I haven't found a man that wants to marry me.
Mm.
And so I think to generalize it and say these men just don't want to be married, I think that softens the blow to our hearts and to our ego, but also too it takes the responsibility off us to do the work and to be and to introspection, to really to think about why is it that I haven't found the one or he hasn't found me to want to be married. And so it's easier just to make a blanket statement that these men just don't want to be married.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, I totally agree with you. I'm glad that we're discussing this. So we just trying to help somebody tonight. So ladies,
Right.
yes, there are men that's willing to marry you.
Right. And I'm glad that to hear that, like you say, even after being in a long-term marriage, when you were out, you still had a desire. You could have easily said, no, that's not for me. I'm going to play the field. I don't want to go through this or that. But you still had a desire to be married. And there are so many, I don't know if you've experienced it because I'm sure you have a lot more guy friends than I've been exposed to, but do you find, I'm sorry, I'm interviewing you now.
No, no, this is what you do, right? You're a YouTuber. I'm
But
listening to you.
do you find that there are men, or you have guy friends or friends, a guy that you know of who do have a desire to be married? What's your
Yes.
experience with that?
Yes, I know guys, and sometimes people be like, you got a brother or you got a friend, that whole thing. And I'm like, yeah, but it has to be the one that's for you. I
Exactly.
think that's the biggest thing, because just because he want to marry doesn't mean he might want to marry you.
Exactly.
So it just depends on, because just like with women, they have certain things that they like in a man and stuff like that. Like, I might like him, but I don't think he's the man for me. So I think that's where you have to know who is the right person for you. That's custom design that God made for you.
Exactly. And you hit on such an awesome point that quite often men and women,
Mhm.
we think that a person does not want to be married, or that our men don't want to be married, or women don't want to be married because we haven't found the one for us. So we generalize that these men just don't want to be married.
Yeah.
And you have to understand that you just haven't come across the one that wanted to be married to you.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean that men don't want to be married, or there's no good women out there who want to be married.
Yep. Totally agree. Totally agree. How can a woman know if the man is willing to give as much as she is giving?
There's only one way for a woman to know
Uh,
if she is getting the same as she's giving, and that's by his actions.
mm,
That actions speak louder than words.
mhm.
But as women, we listen to those words. But there's only one way to know if a man is willing to give as much as she's willing to give, and that's by paying attention to his actions. Is there reciprocity, in this relationship, or in this time of dating?
Mhm.
And that's how you're going to know if he's willing to give, because if he's giving you his time, if he's
Mhm.
giving you his energy, if he's giving you his, he's comforting you, if he's there for you, and that's the only way you're going to know. And you can't, you can't disregard what you're seeing,
Mm.
in hopes that one day, or when, if I marry him, he will start giving. If I marry him, he will start doing this. He's going to do those things in the beginning that he's going to do in the end. And yes, we all learn, change, grow, evolve. Yes, we all do that. But you could tell at the beginning, if he's not giving to you in the dating time, then he's not going to be giving to you as a marriage partner.
Yeah.
And that's the only way you know. To me, that's of course my opinion, but there's no other way to know if a man is going to be willing to give to you, or give to you as much as you give to him, purely by his actions.
Yeah, because you said something in the video that I was watching, you had me cracking up. You talked about how do you know if a man is giving you his time, or if he got like a side chick or a wife or something. You said that he's like all in the camera, like and you can't see any of the background.
Exactly. Exactly. It's like, and like I said in the video, my husband and I have been together, almost 17 years. We have a great marriage. But a woman knows if you pay attention, if you're not leading by your heart, if you lead, with your head. So I knew when my husband was up in the camera like this, I was like, why is he in that camera like that?
Yeah.
And then I talked to him for a little bit and I hung up. And then I said, no, this is not sitting well with me. And so I called him back and I said, why are you all up in the camera? What don't you want me to see? And he's like, oh, I'm here with our son, because our son was in town and they were having dinner.
Yeah.
And so my son, I was like, let me speak with them. Sure, who's over? So my son got in the camera. Now my son's all in the camera. But then I said, oh, later on I told him, I know why you didn't want me to see, because somebody else was there with my son having lunch and they didn't want me to see that. So I'm just saying that we have to lead with our head.
Yeah.
There are things sometimes that just don't line up. And if this man you're dating and those things don't line up, if you don't have access to him, he's not freely giving you that time, you can't come to where he lives, you haven't met anybody in his family, there are all kinds of signs. But I know that's a whole nother video, so I don't want to get all sidetracked. But there's a whole lot of signs, but we leading with our heart, and listening to all the things that he says, and not paying attention to those actions. Like we were saying, it all goes back to actions.
Yeah, because as I was just cracking up when you said that, but I was thinking when my wife and I dated, when I remarried, we lived in two different states, and we always had time for each other. I mean, through text, because we have so many ways of communicating in this day and age.
Yes.
So
many ways of communicating that there are no excuses.
There's no excuses.
No excuses.
Right. So we would, and we're on different time zones. It was like you and I was on different time zones. We had to connect, right?
Yes.
And we talked, hey, what time you taking your break? What time you gonna hit the road? And we talked. Out of the 6 months we were separated and living in different states, there was one day that we didn't converse. Just one day. And that came from miscommunication.
Right. See there? No excuses. But Sean, why is it so hard for women to really understand and grasp that? Why is it so? I grapple with that. Why is it so hard for women to really understand that a man who cares for you, who's pursuing you, who wants a relationship with you, is going to make time for you? There is nothing. Was there anything that got in the way of you communicating with Clarissa those 6 months?
No.
Work, family. Was there anything that got in the way?
No, I made sure, because that energy was reciprocal.
Yes.
Exactly. Now what it is, that's a great question. Maybe somebody in the comments can help us out. But and it's a simple equation, right? I think it is that we're gonna, you give me the energy, I give you the energy. We gotta both have a mutual understanding that I'm interested in you, you're interested in me.
Exactly.
And if it isn't like that, then why chase? I don't know. Because to me, there's no bigger turnoff than me trying to connect with you and you just always busy. To me, that's the turnoff.
Exactly.
I'm like, getting the wrong message.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And of
Um,
course, I have my opinions about it, but another video.
I would love to hear because we out here trying to help folks.
Well, I know several reasons why we as women, lead with our heart and find it hard to understand that if a man don't have time for you, then he's just not that into you. I love that phrase. He's just not that into you. And the reason we do that or settle for that is the biggest thing is loneliness.
Mm.
That when you're lonely, and if you don't make a decision, that regardless how lonely I get, there are certain things I will not accept. If you don't make that decision or that choice and stick by it, then out of loneliness, you allow those things to happen. A lot of self-esteem issues. If you have very poor self-esteem, then you're going to take crumbs.
Yeah.
You're going to accept crumbs. So if he can only give me a couple of minutes a day, or only can call me at midnight, those are crumbs. But your self-esteem is so low at a point that I'll accept crumbs because you don't even know or understand fully that you deserve more than that. I know someone, I have a friend, and she's 60, 61, and she said, I'm just learning my worth. She's I'm just learning that to not accept crumbs. But that's basically what it, we don't know. We don't understand whose we are. We don't understand who we are, and we don't understand that we deserve, and maybe a lot of things have happened in our lives or as we were growing up and developing that make us feel like we don't deserve it.
Yep.
But you have to know that regardless, whatever happened in your life, you inherently deserve it.
Yes.
It's not hinged upon how you were raised, who told you you didn't deserve it, who crushed you, what man told you that you were not worthy. Your self-worth or anything should not be hinged on anything. You are inherently worthy, and you're worthy to not accept crumbs.
That's right.
And that's why we accept those things. That's part, and maybe if some other reasons, but I think that's the primary reason.
Yeah, sad but true. I agree. I was listening to a therapist the other day, not my therapist, but I was listening to a therapist the other day and on a podcast, and she talked about when we struggle with low self-esteem, a lot of times that come from or not loving ourselves, because it's like, what is self-love? What does self-love look like? And if we take a spiritual perspective, we know what that love looked like with Christ on the cross. But as far as just say your average listener, a lot of people struggle with self-esteem because the internal conversations they have with themselves, they never follow through. So say they like, I'm going to start eating healthy, or I'm going to start like all these things we internalize and tell ourselves, but they never follow through.
Right.
So anything that you don't follow through with, it becomes a hit to your self-esteem, because if you can't be committed to you, then how can you be committed to somebody else?
Exactly. Yep. Good stuff. The therapist.
Yeah, right. That was my little therapy session for a second.
Got your therapy.
Yeah, right. I know that helped me. I was like, dang, okay. I see why I was struggling with self-esteem for so long. So why do you think so many women get deceived during this dating stage? Is that still kind of the same thing, just accepting the crumbs?
Kind of the same thing, but also it's because we're leading with our heart. And we're leading with our heart, and we should be leading with our head. And I often said, and you might have heard me say it on my lives, is that I understand why we lead with our heart, because that's what God placed in us.
Yeah.
And it's placed in us for a reason. That's how we can nourish our family. That's how we can raise our babies. That's how we can be that soft place in a hard world for our men. Because we have that heart.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what draws men, to us beyond the physical, is that we have that heart that God has placed in us. It's a good thing to have. It's inherent in us. But just because you have that capacity, that deep capacity of love and forgiveness and and nourishing. It does not mean that you have to lead with that. You have to lead with what God put in here also.
Yeah.
So, and so you have to remember to, to lead with that and to believe what he's showing you.
Mhm.
Believe his deeds and not just, what he says. So that's why we're so easily deceived, is because number one, we're hungry. My husband and I, we all want to be loved.
Yes.
So because we all want to be loved, and because we, God made us to want to be in communication and in commune with someone else, that's natural.
Mhm.
But we are so easily taken with words.
Yeah.
And so all a man has to say is, they don't even say how you doing anymore. They just what is the HY whatever.
Oh yeah, yeah.
What are they? How you doing? HYD, what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Or what you
What are you
doing?
doing?
WYD, or hello beautiful HB, it's like and it's like that's the crumbs that I'm talking about. That's all we need. And we're just so deceived by those things, and deceived by what we saw as what a relationship is.
Mm.
Sometimes we haven't had good examples
So you think
of
it's
what,
programming?
yeah, sometimes we haven't had good examples, and sometimes we don't even see good examples, and sometimes we're not surrounding ourselves with people who can be positive examples in our life. Sometimes we're surrounding ourselves with our ratchet friends who don't have nobody either.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that's where we're so easily misled,
Mm.
because we're, like I said, we're leading with the heart. A guy says that, girl, I like you, I love you. And just because he says, I love you. Now, as women, how you're feeling. Not just women, but men too. You know what you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
You're not feeling loved. You're not feeling adored.
Yeah.
You're not feeling like you're a priority. But yet you're easily misled because he's saying these sweet words, or these, he's saying all the things you want to hear, even though you're not feeling it.
Mm.
But because, again, self-esteem issues, or not having positive examples in your life, or not wanting to be lonely, for whatever reason, the plethora of reasons, we're easily misled by those words.
Yeah. And like you said, because women, this was good. You lead with your heart when it comes to your family, because y'all are that soft place, y'all are that calming place for us, that I think maybe women don't know how to turn it off when it's time to date. Like, it's just still like by default setting, like, I just love you, like I love everybody.
I love when you say that, our default setting. It's true. That's our default setting, and we don't know how to change the default. And just in anything, just like anything else, when you have a default, okay, that's good. That's convenient. You don't have to always change the setting, but sometimes you have to change that default setting. Depends on what you're doing or where. So it's not going to always be the same setting. And I just love that. I love when you say that, because it's okay that it's your default setting.
Yes.
But certain scenarios and certain situations, you have to change that default. Yeah. But you can't use the same. You can't use the same default for every setting, and especially when it comes to dating.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
default. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. So you go into dating, like you say, with the same default setting for every person that you date. It's the same thing, instead of maybe being guarded or changing those settings a little bit,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because what you have to realize is, if you kept the same default setting and the default didn't work, are you going to continue to use that same default? If you were trying to log into something and the default was there, but it never worked, the computer didn't work, or it didn't take you where you need to go, you got to use what else God gave you too, and say, let me change the default. You got to change the setting in order to access what it is you're trying to access.
Right.
Which is love.
Yeah, right.
And the love that you desire and deserve.
I love
Change the
that.
default, ladies.
Change
Change
the
the setting.
default. That's a whole message for Sunday.
Yes, yes, it is. I might just carry this on into my live tonight.
Go ahead and use it. We
Change the
vibing.
default. Stop giving your props and your credit and tell them go on over the shop.
Hey, I appreciate that. When a woman says she's lost a good man and wasn't ready, what does that mean? And are we really ever ready for a good man or woman? Because I heard you talk about that as well, how women say they felt like they missed out because they weren't ready. And I'm like, what does not ready mean?
And what I take that to mean is sometimes we can either be young in age or just immature. We might have been, a little older, a little bit more seasoned, but we were not quite ready to understand what a good man is. Because some women, we don't know what a good man is. We've had no example of good. We didn't have a father that was a good example. We didn't have an uncle that was a good. We didn't have a grandfather that was a good example. Uncles that were good examples, or maybe we know that one good example out of all the people that we know.
He was on TV.
Right? Exactly. So we don't know. Sometimes we don't know what a good man is because, and even in this day and age, especially of internet and social media, we have a skewed idea of what a good man is. We think a good man wears the best clothes, got the abs, that take all the right pictures and do all the right poses and got all the money. And we don't know how this man is treating his woman or women, behind the scenes. And so this, we have such a skewed idea of what a good man is. And I've seen this so many times with just my experience over time of, just being a friend or confidant or first lady, that there have been good men who wanted good women. And I'm going to use one example. Of course, I wouldn't mention the name, but there's a young lady that I know, and these guys, the different guys that she's liked, and one guy particular that she liked. But then here comes another guy raised by a two-parent family. Father is a good man. He's completed college. He's a man of God. He's young, maybe 24, 25-ish. He sees this young lady and he asks, about her, maybe can I get her number, ask about her. And this young lady says, oh, no, I'm talking to someone.
Oh,
and the person she's talking to doesn't give two hoots about her. And I'm like, what? And so this things like that. It's like, I understand that, we want who we're attracted to. I mean, he was an attractive young man, you know what I mean? But I know to each her own what is considered attractive. But there wasn't anything that says, okay, I understand why she wouldn't want to talk to this guy. No, but she's so stuck on this guy who don't want her, not claiming her. And you got a young man who's from a two-parent family, great upbringing, smart, handsome, but he wasn't out there in the world. He wasn't a thug. He wasn't, he wasn't saying all the wrong things, and that's just one case. But it happens like that, where we don't recognize what a good man is, and unfortunately, when we don't recognize we have a good man, or perhaps we started in a relationship with a good man, but to us he was boring, or he didn't argue, or he didn't light your fire, or he didn't want to go to the clubs. He didn't want to go to the clubs. And so the immaturity in us, or the immaturity in the woman, not recognizing this is a good man. I have a good man. And that's the thing, not recognizing. But yes, I would say that you can be ready. You can be ready for, you can be a good man or a good woman, and you can be ready for a good man, and a good woman. So I think that there are some people, even in their 20s, 30s, that are ready.